Hello, welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to take a look at question 2 and 3 for A-level English paper 1-1. So variant 1-1, I believe, May-June 2020. I'll have the details in the title. So I'm not too sure it's that one, but I believe it is. And this was actually a question that one of the subscribers, Tiffany, asked me to do, because in the video itself, in the actual playlist, I didn't go through 2 and 3 in detail. I just did an overview. Okay, so in this video, let's take a look at that. So we have question 2. The following text is taken from the website of a travel agency that specializes in holidays in Brazil. The text includes details of the first 2 days of a 7-day trip to Rio de Janeiro, set to take place around the time of the 2016 Summer Olympics. All right, part A, comment on the language and style of the text, and then in part B, they are asking you to imagine that you decided to go on the trip described in the text and you just returned to your hotel on the evening of day 2. So this is important, day 2, not day 1, but day 2. Running out of ink. All right, day 2. You decided to share your thoughts and feelings about the trip on your personal travel blog. All right, 120 to 150 of your own words, and also the answer for part B should be highly in relation to the original passage. Okay, so what we will be doing is we will be reading the text, and keep in mind that whatever I highlighted in red is in regards of the language, and in blue we are focusing on style. Okay, so let's begin. Rio Olympics travel packages is the title. First subheading, Rio Olympics travel packages synopsis. August 5th to 21st. The 2016 Summer Olympics will take place in the marvelous city Rio de Janeiro. On this tour, not only will you get to experience the wonders of a truly distinct, vibrant, and geographically beautiful city, but you will be there live during the Summer Olympics, one of the largest events in the world. Given the magnitude of this event, there will be a huge influx of people visiting the city simultaneously. Rio will be bustling. However, by leaving all the logistics to us, you can rest assured that everything will be taken care of, and you can simply focus on enjoying your experience to the maximum. Remember that our Rio Olympics travel packages can be customized to fit your particular needs. Rio de Janeiro info. Situated between lush Atlantic rainforest covered mountains and breathtaking beaches, the Cidade Maravilhosa, marvelous city, has an allure like no other. Rio's passion and zeal are instantly felt upon arrival as a result of the Carioca way of life, where every day seems like a celebration. While large-scale festivities such as Carnival make Rio famous, there are countless occasions to enjoy all year long. Saturday at Ipanema Beach, where some of the bikini-clad Brazilians bask in the tropical sun, a festa party. In Lipa, football at Maracana, or an impromptu Roda de Samba circle on the sidewalks of Leblon, Copacabana, or Lagoa. The spectacular landscape is another of Rio's virtues. Majestic peaks, golden beaches, and deep blue sea offer a range of adventure. The Christ the Redeemer statue and Sugarloaf Mountain are just the beginning of Rio's wonderful offerings. Ride great surf breaks, trek through Tijuca's rainforest, or hike up Morro dos Irmãos, Two Brothers Hills, for one of the most impressive views of the city. Rio Olympics travel packages, itinerary day by day. Day 1, August 4th, 2016, arrive in Rio de Janeiro. Start one of our many possible Rio Olympics travel packages at the Rio airport, where our tour representative will be waiting for you to escort you to your accommodation by air-conditioned coach. Embrace the lively carioca lifestyle by going for a stroll along the boardwalk, relaxing on the beach, going shopping, and people watching. For dinner, enjoy a delicious Brazilian barbecue at one of the most highly touted churrascarias in the city, included in your tour. Day 2, August 5th, 2016, Rio de Janeiro City Tour. After a fresh Brazilian breakfast at the hotel, our English-speaking guide will pick you up by air-conditioned coach for a half-day tour of Rio de Janeiro. First, head up the Sugarloaf Mountain, a granite peak that towers over Guanabara Bay and is right in the midst of the city. Take the cable car ride to the top of Ursa Mountain. The views of the city, the ocean, the islands in the bay, and the jungle-covered peaks are truly amazing. Then ascend the most famous peak in Rio de Janeiro, Corcovado Mountain, where the iconic Christ the Redeemer statue sits on top, gazing with outstretched arms over Rio. Enjoy panoramic views of the city's incredible natural terrain, as well as close-ups of the statue. Go back to the hotel to freshen up, get a bite to eat, then and transfer by private coach to the 2016 Summer Olympics opening ceremony in Maracana Stadium. Our tour representative will be awaiting for you at the designated pickup location to take you back to your hotel afterwards. Okay, so what a cool sounding trip. Let's take a look at language and style, but first what I would like to do is I've just noticed some things that I could have underlined to go through. there are a lot of figures of speech in this text, and actually every text you can find a lot of them. Okay, just a few seconds. I am almost done. Okay. Okay, let's begin. So first thing that you can obviously notice regarding style is the subheadings, right? So subheadings, and we even have nested subheadings. So here is the major subheading, the day by day breakdown, and then you have day 1. You also have day 2. I'll just actually take this away here. You have day 2 as well. Okay, and the question in the instructions, we were told it's a 7-day trip. So there's probably more, but we were just given a portion of the text, which stops at day 2. Okay, and you see that, so there's the nested subheading there. And what the subheading does as far as communication is it's the way of the style of the writer, to their way of organizing the text. So you don't really have to read in order. It allows the reader to actually just target paragraphs based on the information that they're looking for. So if I'm going on the website and I'm reading this text and I only care about knowing what am I going to do on day 2, because the second day is maybe like the most important thing for me when I go on vacation, I could just skip all of the information here and just go to day 2. So it's a good way of organizing the text and making it easy to scan overall, right? So imagine if there were no subheadings and you actually had to read everything, or to find a way to, it was just a condensed text, it would be a lot harder to scan it for specific information. Okay, so that's first and foremost the subheadings. Okay, and right off the bat, I see the first paragraph, which is the summary, so the synopsis, is filled with, here I underline in blue 2 major parts that showcase pathos, and I think that throughout the text it's actually the dominating rhetoric, it's pathos. And the reason why is because here in the sentence, on this tour not only will you get to experience the wonders of a truly distinct, vibrant, and geographically beautiful city, but you will be there live during the Summer Olympics, one of the largest events in the world. We have exclamation mark, okay? And it goes on to say that the city is going to be very busy. There's going to be a lot of people in Rio. And however, don't worry, right? Here, that's the next sentence. Don't worry. We will take care of all the details for you. All you have to do is show up and you can enjoy the experience, right? Another exclamation mark. Okay? So what's going on here, the effect that it's giving you here, it's like it uses a figure of speech called parallelism. And parallelism is when you have 2 consecutive ideas that are related to one another, and the second one that the consecutive ones are the ones that just add emphasis to what you're trying to put forth, right? So here the point is that Rio is just amazing, and it's a wonderful, distinct, vibrant city, but it's also going to be the location of the Olympics. So it's like you're going to be in this great place and it's going to be amazing, and on top of that, so it's like, oh, and the icing on the cake or the cherry on top, or and just here it's already good enough, but here's more to just make you salivate and to make you want to come even more, is that the Olympics are happening here. Okay, so that's what parallelism does. It's just putting emphasis on the idea and what you're trying to get across, and that plays into pathos because it's getting that emotional reaction from you. You're like, wow, not only is Rio great, but I have to go because the Olympics are going to be there too. So it makes it even that much better, right? And then again, later on, with the not playing with your emotions, but really reaching for that emotional reaction from you, is they're saying, don't worry, you really don't have to do anything. You just have to show up. You just have to show up, leave all the frustrating and hard stuff for us to do, figuring out how you're going to get to point A, from point A to point B. We'll do that. You just focus on enjoying the experience, okay? So that's pathos right there for you. It's making you think that everything's going to be perfect and you'll have nothing to worry about. Okay, next thing that I realized regarding the style is we have passing comments. Okay, passing comments is when you have the main text, but then the writer says something, they have something that they add on a part. Okay, so here we have the passing comments that are within the parentheses, the parentheses. Okay, so we have cidade maravilhosa. Okay, maravilhosa. So this is in Portuguese, and then they translate in English. So they say cidade goodness, I cannot pronounce this. Cidade maravilhosa, marvelous city. Okay, festa, party, impromptu roda de samba, samba circle, moro dois irmãos, two brothers hill. Okay, so here they're adding that explanation. Okay, for people like me who have a hard time with the Portuguese, so which makes sense. And the effect is they're giving you that authenticity, so the reader gets the authentic version, but then also they help you out. They're like, okay, by the way, yeah, this means marvelous city. Okay, so that's the effect that it has there with the style. And I think that it also it gives you that sense of exotic, right? Because they're leaving the authentic expression name. Okay, and here we have for language we have a litote. Okay, when they say like no other, and a litote is verbal irony. So instead of saying unique, right, there's the irony there, like no other. So you negate other, no other. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to find another simpler example. So yes, so this is a very simple example. So for example, just repeated myself there. Here aside, let me get just a piece of paper for you. Okay, so for an example of a okay, so here if you wanted to express great, great or good, or that's good, okay, or that's good, rather. You want to say that's good. If you want to use this figure of speech, the litote, you'll just say not bad. So what is not bad? something that is not bad is good. But instead of just saying good, you negate the negation of good. So the negation of good is bad, and you negate that. So not bad, it's good. Okay, so here we have other, no other, like no other. So you have that figure of speech there. And right after, you have a personification. We see Rio's passion and zeal. Okay, as if Rio can have passion or zeal. It's attributing a human characteristic to a non-human thing, right? And then a little bit later, we have a simile when the writer says, way of life instantly felt upon arrival as a result of the carioca way of life, where every day seems like a celebration. All right, so keyword there, like, gives it away as a simile, like a celebration. So you're comparing every day to a celebration in Rio. Okay, and later on we have hyperbole, so exaggeration. There are countless occasions to enjoy all year long. Okay, countless, as if you can never, it's an infinite set. But I'm sure that if you really sit down, it might take a very, very long time, but there's probably a finite set of occasions in Rio. Okay, so the countless, saying countless makes it a hyperbole. And here, so this is what I underlined when we were done reading. And the Christ the Redeemer statue is repeated. Just repeated, it's just written twice. The second time it's repeated with iconic. And I think that it's very important. So you can argue repetition here. That's probably, to be honest, kind of a weak example, but I think you could still add it there. Repetition, because it's important. If you go, Brazil is known, it is true that Brazil is known for Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio. So I think that it was very important for them to mention that this trip, their packages will also feature this Christ the Redeemer statue. Okay, and over here, second thing that I underlined after we were done reading was this enumeration here. Embrace the lively carioca lifestyle by going on a stroll along the boardwalk, relaxing on the beach, going shopping, and people watching. So there's an enumeration, a list of all the things that you could be doing, and they do that quite often. So you can argue that there's a few of them in the text. I didn't underline, but I'm sure you can find a few in a lot of these paragraphs. And this is common, right? I mean, sorry, not common. It is common for this type of text that we're reading. The article, the travel agency, it's a marketing text, so they have to enumerate things that can be done at the destination, right? So it makes sense to use enumerations. And another thing that you will also notice throughout the text, and that I've majorly noticed in the last paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, paragraph 4, is that you have a lot of imagery. This whole thing's in imagery, and you can imagine yourself, right, through the use as well of they're using second person. So after a fresh Brazilian breakfast at the hotel, our English speaking guide will pick you up by air-conditioned coach. So you imagine yourself after breakfast going into an air-conditioned coach, okay? And then you take the cable car ride to the top of a mountain. You have beautiful views. Again, here we have an enumeration. Then you ascend the most famous peak of Rio, okay? And you see the statue there, gazing with outstretched arms over Rio. You have a I forgot how to pronounce this. Panoramic, yes, panoramic views. You have panoramic. I cannot. Excuse me, guys. You have panoramic views. Okay, don't judge me. as you go down. And so basically my point is that there's a lot of imagery going on. If you close your eyes and someone reads this to you, you can really picture. Okay, so it's very descriptive. And that's another thing that you can point out. You can list a lot of the adjectives that they use, okay? Marvelous city, majestic peaks, golden beaches, delicious Brazilian barbecue, highly touted. Okay, you have so many adjectives in the text, which is normal because it's it's for marketing purposes. Okay, and then here are a few other notes that I have. Sentences, they're long and medium for the length, okay? And grammatical person, we have second person. There's a lot of yous. I think this is the dominant one. Grammatical person, the dominant is second person because they say you a lot. Or maybe it's half, second and third. Why don't you be the judge of that? Okay, third person, the, it, this, because it's describing the scenery, the places, the attractions. Okay, so it's a mixture of both. The tone, I feel like the tone is informative, of course, because it's informative, descriptive. Okay, enthusiastic as well. We saw the use of the exclamation marks right at the beginning here. They're really trying to lure you in. So of course the tone has to be somewhat exciting, because if it wasn't, then people probably wouldn't buy these packages, right? They'd get no business. So it's enthusiastic as well as informative. Okay, and I also noticed that for the style, the language is formal based on the words that are used. So influx, upon arrival, okay? For example, here, upon arrival was used here. Rio's passion and zeal are instantly felt upon arrival. Okay, it's pretty fancy. Not super fancy, but it's not common language, right? You don't say, you wouldn't talk to your friend on the phone and say, yes, upon arrival, we will definitely feel the zeal and the passion of Rio. You would probably tell your friends when we get here or when we get there, okay? So they could have said, passion and zeal are instantly felt when you get there, but they said upon arrival. Makes it a little more formal, less informal, conversational, right? Another word, midst was used here. Peak, the bay, and is right in the midst of the city. Could have used in the middle of the city. Ascend, designated is used here, waiting for you at the designated pickup location. Could have just said waiting for you at the pickup location. Would have the same meaning, but it's formal. And it also makes sense it's formal because it is on a professional website. right? It is a travel agency that specializes in holidays. So it would make sense that they want to also seem professional for their clients, right? Okay, so that's what I have for part A of question 2. And in B, you are being asked to imagine that you went on the trip and that you returned to the hotel on the evening of day 2. Okay, and you decide to share your feelings about the trip and your personal travel blog. So here, quickly, something to keep in mind is you got back on the evening of day 2. So being back on day 2, it means that you already gone through day 1. And here, based on what the question is asking, the question did not say anything about you having already posted your feelings about day 1. So maybe your thoughts and feelings about the trip, by the way, it says about the trip. It doesn't say about day 2 specifically. It says the trip. Okay? So maybe you can also use the information of day 1 when you can comment on day 1, but I would focus on commenting on day 2 as well as day 1. I would do a bit of day 1, but heavily on day 2, okay? And the way that I would do it is I would reread this paragraph and I would pretend that I went through everything, and I would comment in detail. So after a fresh Brazilian breakfast at the hotel, okay, so what I would do is I would probably comment on the breakfast. The breakfast was good. The fruit were really fresh, and think of an exotic fruit that you may not have where you are, and that you know that Brazil, that there would be in Rio, okay? Exotic fruits, so comment on that. Also comment on, here it says the cable car ride, okay? So comment on that. Were you afraid of the heights? Was it the first time? You can say it was my first time taking a cable car ride. It was fun, or I was scared, or someone was crying, or I wanted, you can also have like a negative perspective in the sense that you were trying to enjoy the view, but somebody beside you was crying and just ruined it, right? Or something along those lines. But the point is to really read day 1 and day 2, and then comment and add on details, make up details to add on, okay? And you could also just use probably maybe some of the other information. Maybe you could use this here because they did say that they're going to take care of everything for you to experience things at a maximum. So maybe you could refer to this and be like, oh well, they forgot to do this that day, or oh, they did a great job, okay? But get creative. As long as you stay in between 120 to 150 words, it should be fine. And of course, making sure that you minimize the grammar mistakes and that the English is clean and good and easy to read. Okay, so there you have it for question 2. Let's move on to question 3. The following text is taken from a memoir entitled The Man Who Climbs Trees by James Aldred. Comment on the language and style. And then part B, imagine you have been asked to write a review of Aldred's book for a nature magazine, basing your writing closely on the material of the original passage and using 120 to 150 of your old words. Write a section of the book review. Okay. As usual, red is for language, blue is for style. Let's begin. I had been woken by a sudden downdraft of air that left my hammock gently swaying. Lying on my side, I stared in drowsy amazement at the huge prehistoric-looking bird that had just landed next to me. The two of us were 200 feet off the ground in the top of a tree in Borneo, and I'd never seen a rhinoceros hornbill so close up before. It hadn't noticed me yet and was using its long beak to preen its breast feathers. A huge, colorful casque curled up from the top of its head like a flamboyant Turkish slipper, fiery reds and yellows glowing brightly in the half light of dawn. I was entranced. A few seconds later, it froze, then raised its I have no idea, pterodactyl head to peer at me with a ruby red eye before launching off the branch into space. Immense black wings unfurled to catch its weight, and it was gone, swallowed in an instant by the thick morning mist. Rolling onto my back, I lay staring up into the giant branches above. It had been a long night. The sweat from yesterday's climb had long since congealed into a clammy grime all over me. Okay, here I'll just pause for a second, just to make sure that you understand so far. So, first paragraph, the writer is speaking directly to us, and another thing to note is that a memoir is somebody recalling, maybe a biography, but it's somebody recalling a specific event, specific moments. Okay, so if you call your parent or your friend and you tell them about your day that you just had, it's pretty dumb to say, but it would be sort of a memoir, right? You're just recalling something that happened previously. And here in the first paragraph, we see that the writer was woken by a downdraft of air. Okay, so it means that there was air, that there's just a huge, as if wind just came suddenly out of nowhere, and there's just this huge pressure of air, and it was actually a bird that had landed next to him. Okay, and it's a huge prehistoric bird, and the way that he describes the bird with the red and yellows, and the red and yellows were just glowing brightly in the half light of dawn. So if dawn, it means it was early in the morning. Okay, and he was very amazed and captivated by what he saw. Okay, and a few seconds after, the bird noticed that he was there, and then it stared at him before it left. Okay, and we are here, I believe. Yes. So here I was reading about him rolling onto his back again and just staring up. Okay, and now he's talking about the night before. So he's doing a little bit of a flashback. It had been a long night. The sweat from yesterday's climb, so now we know he's climbing, had long since congealed into a clammy grime all over me. Okay, and congealed means that it sort of froze. Okay, my clothes were dank, gritty, and torn, and my skin crawled with biting ants. I had a burning rash on my chest from who knows what, And I'd been stung twice on the face by a night wasp sometime around midnight. But it was worth it. All of it. Encountering a hornbill like that was what it was all about. I was immersed in my very own dream world of swirling mist and fairy tale creatures. There was nowhere else I'd rather be. The sun hadn't yet risen, and I was cold for the first time since arriving in Borneo. A welcome change from the usual stifling heat of the rainforest. Sunrise couldn't be far off, but for now I was happy to lie back and watch the individual droplets of water drift past. They swirled in the visible currents of air, condensing as shiny beads on the metal of my climbing gear. I had slept in my safety harness attached to a rope, my only direct link to the other world far below. So yes, he is describing his experience, the rash that he has, and being bitten by an insect twice on the face. And he says, but everything that he went through, that moment that he had in the paragraphs above with that hornbill, that's what the bird is described to be, made everything that he has gone through so far worth it. Okay? And now he goes back to present time. And he says he was cold for the first time that morning. So this is after the bird flew away, right? He's cold. The sunrise couldn't be far off because remember here he talks about it of being half light of dawn. So it's not completely the morning yet. Okay. And he slept in his safety harness attached to a rope. Okay, so we see that he's probably high, and the fact that he slept in a safety harness means that he's not in a safe place, so he couldn't just sleep comfortably. You know, you never know, he might be rolling and fall off somewhere, so he had to sleep in his safety harness. And we also know that he was climbing, so probably on a mountain, right? Oops, I just kicked my camera. Okay. And then we have 3 ellipses. So we have the ellipsis. So it's skipping time. Okay. So time goes by here. 10 stories above ground, I was halfway up, and the tree trunk still measured 5 feet in diameter. These Borneo trees are on a different scale to any other hardwoods in the world. I spun around to take a look at the view. I had been saving this moment until I was way above the understory, in a place that would do it justice, but I had felt its presence lurking behind me the whole time as I climbed. An almost palpable, brooding watchfulness, as if 1,000 pairs of hidden eyes were boring into me from the surrounding jungle. As I twisted around, I was greeted by one of the most breathtaking views I'd ever seen. Dense rainforest swept away from me, cascading steeply down from the ridge to merge into an enticing landscape of giant trees far below. Many miles away on the horizon, the forest rose back up to swarm over a ridge of tall, rugged hills, a vast ocean of unexplored virgin jungle. What hidden wonders lay out there in those trees? Okay. What a lovely text. Okay. So here, after the ellipses, what happened is we see that there's a skip in time, okay? And he is now halfway up, and despite being halfway up, the tree trunk still measured 5 feet in diameter, okay? So it means that usually the more you go up, right, the trunk of a tree is usually very thick, right? But when you go up and you get towards the peak of the tree, the trunk kind of gets skinnier and skinnier, right? But in this case, he was halfway up and the trunk was still very thick. So it seems like there's a long way to go. And he actually stopped to take a look around, and he says that he felt like the bird. So there is a presence of the bird that he had saw earlier, right? And he also goes on to say that not only the bird, but just other things watching him, other creatures that were hidden in that jungle watching him. Okay, and he says that he was greeted by the breathtaking view as he looked around, and he goes to describe the landscape, the trees, and he says that many miles away, the forest rose back up to soar over a ridge of tall hills, and there's an ocean. So he describes his surrounding, and then he also says what hidden wonders lay out there in those trees. So he's in one section. Let's say he's like in this section here, like a little section here. He's like, okay, so what's all the way over here, I wonder. Okay, now let's take a look at the language and the style. So first thing that is very obvious when you start reading is the use of imagery, okay? The text is very, very descriptive. So right away, the writer does not waste time. I had been woken up by a sudden downdraft of air that left my hammock gently swaying. So you just imagine someone that was sleeping and then their hammock is swaying. So you picture this in your head, right? If you were to close your eyes and I was to read this to you, or if maybe you rewind and you close your eyes while you listen to me read to it, maybe you'll imagine these things and pictures will come up in your head. Okay, so there's a lot of imagery because of all the descriptive words that he uses, the adjectives. And that's just throughout the whole entire text, right? Even here, reds and yellows glowing brightly in the half light of dawn. A lot of imagery going on, figure of speech. Okay, here's interesting. So he says I had, right? I had, and then he says I'd never seen. So I'd never seen is I had, but it's a contraction. Okay, that's what you call when instead of saying I had, he said I'd never seen. Again, he says it hadn't noticed me yet. So it's contraction. And when you use a contraction, right, another example is if you were to say she is versus she's, right? She apostrophe S, so she's nice, or she is nice. She is nice does not use contraction, but she's nice, the apostrophe S is a contraction, which is an informal way of writing. So using contractions shows a lack of formality. But at the beginning here, he said I had. Okay, so it's a little bit confusing. There's a little clash going on between being formal and not formal. It comes up again here. I had no contraction again. And see here, I did not underline it first, but you have it here again. So contraction. It's a mixture. So there's a mixture of informal and formal, okay? And in relation to that, which is a little bit weird, makes you think, is it the same person who wrote the text? But it's actually pretty common that people go from using contractions to not using them. But it's a little bit strange here because then you have formal words that he uses. Entranced, right? He says, I was entranced. I could say I was amazed, I was intrigued. You could use other simpler words. I was entranced. And this word here that I cannot pronounce, pterodactyl, no idea. Pterodactyl, maybe the P silent, pterodactyl. Okay, congealed, which means solid, so somewhat frozen. So it's a liquid that goes to solid, right? There's simpler ways to use some of the words that he uses in this text, but he uses very formal synonyms, okay? So it shows that it's strange. He's formal yet informal, okay? You can argue that it seems to be a clash of using formal language versus non-formal. Another thing that we see here is we see the passing comments. So here we have a huge passing comment. Okay, using a dash. Does that quite often. So he's just adding, right? A passing comment is he has his main idea and then he adds on to it. Okay, so it's kind of, the way that you would read it is a huge color cast curled up from the top of its head like a flamboyant Turkish slipper. Fiery reds and yellows glowing brightly in the half light of dawn. Okay, so it's kind of an add-on. He's just adding something to his thought. Here as well, you see it again. He says, but it was worth it. All of it, right? So another add on there, all of it, and just in case you were wondering. Okay, so you have that, the passing comments. Figure of speech again, we have a few of them, quite a few figures of speech. Personification, immense black wings unfurled to catch its weight. Okay, to catch, the wings catching. Personification there. So a human characteristic to non-human thing. Wings are not, they're not human, right? So yes, personification. The sweat from yesterday's climb had long since congealed. Symbolism, okay? So the fact that the sweat has congealed, then it gives you an idea, and it gives you the feeling that he's been there for a while, okay? So it plays into this long night because the sweat is not fresh, okay? When you come back from playing sports or working out, whatever you may, being active, and the sweat is fresh, it's still leaking from your body, or you can still see it, right? But when it's been a while, imagine you were playing all day and you go home at night, it's a little bit dried. You can tell that the person has worked out, but it's a little bit dried. Okay, so that's what he means there. So it reinforces the idea of it being a long time that has passed. We have another personification when the writer says, my skin crawled with biting ants. Okay, skin crawling, skin cannot crawl. So again, you have human attribute, human characteristic that was given to a non-human thing. Alliteration, WWW, so 3 W's close by, was what it was. So it's not fully a tongue twister, right? But it's just repeating that you can hear it was what it was. You have that whoa, 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 was what it was, right? Your W's there. Forms an alliteration. Okay. Oh, here again we have the contractions, okay? These two are relating to contraction, about what we were just talking about, formal versus informal. Next we have the style, we have the ellipsis, okay? So he's omitting a passage here. So what happens from here to here, the writer does not disclose that. So he did use a skip in time. So that's definitely a writing style of this writer, who is James. Okay, so that's James' personal style. He skipped a few passages there, a few details that he did not share. Okay, and simile, an almost palpable brooding watchfulness, as if 1,000 pairs of eyes were boring into me from the surrounding jungle. So keyword here that gives it away is as. There's a comparison. Okay, so he's comparing the two feelings. All right. And here I also notice this plays into style. What hidden wonders lay out there in those trees? That's how he ends the text, or the end of this passage, okay? And the end of this passage here is we're left with asking ourselves questions, right? So it leaves the reader thinking and wanting more, because by asking that question, then even after you're done reading, you're going to ask yourself, like, I really wonder what was actually there. Well, and you start imagining things and thinking about all the possibilities, and there's literally an infinite amount of possibilities. So it has that effect on the reader. The reader is done reading, but they're not done thinking, right? They're not done thinking. Compared to if he actually did not leave us with a question and he had like a solid conclusion, then you would probably you wouldn't think about it any longer when you're done reading. Okay, so this is a pretty strong effect. Right, additional notes, the sentences, they're long and medium. He does make use of short. So this is the dominating, right? Dominating is long plus medium, but there are short sentences as well. Okay, a few short sentences, like here, I was entranced. Oh, yeah, I was entranced. And another very short sentence right here, but it was worth it, all of it. Okay, there was nowhere else I'd rather be. So he does use short, long, and medium, but mostly long and medium. The tone, see, there's two main tones. You have appreciative, and he's in admiration, okay, because he says, I'd never seen something like that. And explicitly, I was entranced. So that's in paragraph 1. Paragraph 5 and 6. So 5 and 6, he's talking about the beauty. And here he says, I wanted to take a look at the view. I had been saving this moment until I was way above, in a place that would do it justice. Okay, so he's amazed and he's appreciative of what he sees. Okay, by one of the most breathtaking views. And in 2, 3, and 4, I find him accepting. Okay, 2, 3, and 4, when he says it was worth it. Okay, and he's talking about the sweat that dried, and he's talking about the rash that he has. Okay, he's also talking about being cold. So it's not very positive talk here, but he's accepting of it. He's accepting. Okay, I don't personally, when I read, I don't get a complaining tone. I get this kind of sucks, but it's okay, right? So the tone is accepting. All right, I think that is it, yeah, for part A. And part B, imagine you have been asked to write a review of the book for Nature magazine, okay? And your review, so write a section of the book review. So you have to write a section, right? Not the whole review, but a section. And keep it between 120, 150 words. Personally, what my advice would be, what I would do myself if I was to answer this question, is I would definitely keep my review on the bird that he saw. Okay, so I would comment on that. I would say how amazing it is, and how the way that he describes the bird just makes me picture it. And also I would talk about the bird, but I would also talk about how much endurance he has. Okay, I would focus on the hardships that he mentions here, so the rash and all of that. And I would just commend him for going through with his journey and not giving up. Because me personally, if I was in his place, I would not last a night. I would definitely go home, like, from being there 1 hour max, and I'd be like, okay, I'm done, thank you nature, bye-bye. Okay, so I would say focus on that for the review, the bird as well as the hardships. Okay, and that is what I have for you for question 3. Okay, so that was question 3 and question 2. All right, and I hope, especially for Tiffany, who is the person who asked for this detailed video, I hope that it helps you. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I take a look at them, and I always take them into consideration. Okay, but for now, I just thank you for making it to the end of the video, and I will see you in the next one. And I also hope that you have a great day or night, depending on where you are located in the world. Okay, so talk to you soon.